after the courts ruled that the e-citizen, especially when paying school fees, has been postponed to a later date, as a case that has been filed by Dr. Magare Gikenyi, a consultant, trauma general surgeon and human rights activist, moved to the court to challenge that decision by the government. But why has the good doctor gone to the courts? We are finding out why, because he was at Spice FM earlier today. Let's follow up on that.
That society. So because of that, then I said when I grow up, I would try, because I was trying, people were trying to stop me from fetching water. You're like, I don't know if you, for those who live in town, you may not understand. For those who live in the village, fetching water just from a spring. Just walk in with your mtungi, and then you, yes, with some 2 pipes there where you put, and then you take home. So sometimes you always ask, this water's coming a lot, and somebody's
telling you that you can't access it.
Or you have to wait until that person finishes. So I say, in my small aspect as a boy, I said this is injustice. I will always try and work against that aspect. Even sometimes when you get sick, I used to go to a dispensary. Sometimes you can stay there for a very long time without being treated that time when you have a simple ailment. So I said when I grow up, I want to be a doctor so that I can do better than what I used to receive in my rural home. There was a small dispensary called Kionyo dispensary in Kisi County. So sometimes because of that aspect of medicine, and then just on this side, I say when I grow up, I'll try as much as possible to fight for the other people in society, so that you can bring fairness.
That's interesting that you say that, because you went into a profession, the medical profession, obviously, but then what you've said that you consider to be injustices has gone beyond fighting in the medical field, and that's how a lot more people have come to know of you and what you do. And if we can jump right into that, a number of petitions that you've brought forward have then resulted in a number of things, you know, suspension of, you know, particular issues, holding until petitions have been heard, you know, asking. Do you see these, even before we go to the details, do you see these as fighting what you consider to be injustices?
Yes, but I consider this one, I fight this one because we realize sometimes as a society, we need to work hard, especially for those who cannot defend themselves. So, for example, like most people, I can call them the young people. Me and you were the young, because according to WHO, all age starts at 65. Anybody who is below 65 is a young person. So all people start at 65 and above. So sometimes the challenge we have is that sometimes we can make a lot of issues, but we can what you call keyboard warriors. We just talk a lot, but we don't move from that step forward. Sometimes I always say it's good to move forward so that you can fight for what you consider right. For example, when the government introduced IDs, that we are supposed to pay ID 1,000 for a new for those Kenyans who want to be registered as citizens. I think it was fair and fair, because if you realize majority of these IDs, people who apply for them are a university, are just Form 4 leavers.
High school,
Yes, Form 4s, why do you get 1,000? Sometimes for those who are in town, you think 1,000 is a small amount. But even me, when I, for example, like if I give you my history, even at home getting even 10 bob to buy even some salt is very difficult. So how do you tell somebody, like in most of our rural villages, our parents don't have money. So that's why I moved to court and said, no, this idea should, even if we were not involved, sometimes the Constitution of Kenya mandates all policy makers, before they make policy decisions affecting people, let the people be involved. That's why I moved to court and stopped. The same issue with this aspect of e-citizen, where they say that that everybody, every services should be accessed through e-citizen as part of what they call bringing services close to the people. As a Kenyan, I have no problem with that aspect of making services close to the people. But you have to consider other factors. Among the most important factors, that any policy which you make the first and the most important, even if it's very good, just involve the people. That's the most important aspect. Involve the people. If you have a good idea, well and good, just involve the people. That's what it's not my own liking. It's the Constitution. If you take Article 10, as read with also Article 232, that whatever they did is what you call an administrative action. That administrative action, one, people should always be involved. They need to be involved. They need to be, what's your opinion? How do you go about it? For example, even the 50 cents, they say they are calling convenience fee. 50 bob, yes. The convenience fee. Sometimes people see when we sit in big tables, we see 50 bob is a small amount. But like I'm sure you learned in these universities, most comrades or what call students, they don't have a 50 bob. Sometimes you can take sukuma wiki ugali, which is ugali is like our time used to be 5 bob. Sukuma wiki is around 5 to 10 shillings. That's around 15 shillings. So if you were to take currently ugali sukuma wiki, you have to take 5 plus 10, which
plus
is 15. 50. Then add 50 on top. So your total cost
65.
is 65
for ugali
sukuma. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. Sometimes they always say whatever policy decision make, they must be rational. Rational means and very reasonable. If you tell somebody in the street that because of poverty I want to take sukuma wiki chapati madondo, which costs around 30 bob. Sometimes it's not that sometimes it's not your wish to take that chapati madondo. It's because your pocket...
It's your circumstance.
Yes, your pocket's not allowing. Then someone tells you, before you can eat this chapati madondo or sukuma wiki, which costs 30 bob, add 50 bob for the government in terms of transaction fee or whatever they call convenience fee. That's not rational. Because one of the principles of unconstitutionality is when policymakers make what they call irrational decisions. Irrational decisions are those decisions which does not agree with the normal reasoning of society. That's what I can say.
What's the threshold for engaging the public? When you say, before you make any decision, involve the people.
Yes.
So what is sufficient public participation?
As the rule of the general public participation, it's not a must that every Kenyan must be involved. And you don't have to have 50 million giving them their views for that to become law. Once you provide what you call sufficient platforms, for example, in the National Assembly, they just put a notice for those who are wishing to do this. You can put up your petition memoranda. You can come physically. For those who wish to come. As far as you have done that, what you call reasonable exposure. For example, if I want to do public participation, I announce right now that people want to give public participation, bring the memoranda. This is 8 a.m. And then by 10 a.m. I close. Right? Isn't that aspect? That's not a real public participation. That's what's called cosmetic public participation. Public participation should be what you call a reasonable man. That's what you call a reasonable man test. If you walk in the street, just ask anybody, not even educated. If I was to put a note today and I close it in the next one hour, is that one reasonable?
Yeah, who's going to see it?
Yes, exactly. But for example, you give like all notices in the media, in the website, everywhere, in the emails. You give even a month or something. Then people, not all, if all Kenyans can give public participation, so that's even better. But it's not a matter ever. But you have to try, as policymaker, you have to try what you can call it reasonable. There's no like a standard way, but forgot to call a reasonable man. If you see something, for example, in your view, you can, even if you didn't go to school, you can say, this looks better.
It does.
Yes, for example...
Maybe there must be evidence that you have tried to reach the largest number of people possible.
Yes.
And one can verify that that effort has been made.
Yes.
Now, whether they assent to that invitation, that's a different matter, but the effort is clear.
Yes.
Yeah. So you know what happens every time.
Yes.
And like, we obviously, Doc, this is not the first time you've brought about an objection like this. Petition then ensues.
Yes.
But every time it happens, the backlash that comes, especially from those who instituted the original, idea, is that Kenyans are anti-development and anti-progress that the government is trying to put in place that will essentially help Kenyans. What do you have to say to that? Because you will hear a lot of it. It already started yesterday. The president spoke from overseas and said, you know what? Okay, there's a petition, you're trying to block it, but it's going to happen anyway. What stirs you when you hear things like that?
Number one, I can start like me, I like for development. And most Kenyans are very reasonable. In fact, that's what I always believe. Kenyans are very reasonable. Nobody is against development. For example, this issue of paying school fees through e-citizen is a good idea. It's not a bad idea per se. But number one, there are various flaws. Number one, people were not involved. The involvement of the people is not a choice. Like when the president was swearing in, he was given a constitution, and they said he will swear by what the constitution says. Yes. It's not my wording. They say wherever policy can be good, involve the people first. So if the constitution is saying, then are you saying that the constitution is bad? That's the same constitution which also gave him the authority to do whatever he wants to be the president. Number two, you have in the process, you must make that whatever decision you make, you must consider all other aspects or all stakeholders in that field. Like in the education sector, we have many stakeholders. We have parents, we have students who are involved, we have education officials, we have even our members of parliament. You also consider about the situation. Like for example, Eric and Charles, if you remember when we were growing up, majority of Kenyans, in fact, are very poor. They live below the poverty line. If you check the WHO, close to 8 million Kenyans live below the poverty line. And if you realize, only 700,000 of Kenyans are employed by government. And then 3.5 million Kenyans are employed in a formal employment, formal. And then 15 million are informal, which means close to 30 million are not employed. For example, education is a right. They always say, as a parent, if you want to give anything as an inheritance to a child, no, you can give him land, that's an extra, you can give him car, anything. But the best thing you can give a child as an inheritance is just education. If you can give a child education, even if you don't give him anything, he or she will grow up and she will move his or her own life very well. For example, when the school fees, most of us grew up, they were told we grew up in a fairly poor family background. I'm very sure even most of you, when you grew up, that's the same aspect, and that's where you are here. We did not have enough money to pay school fees. Our parents used to, if they have a sack of maize, they just go and talk with the headmaster. They have this sack, that's converted for fees. You can go even with mbuzi. Ambe mwalimu, to be honest, in a person, he or she, the mother or the father, is not that he's faking, it's real. He doesn't have the money. The only thing he can have is mbuzi or a condor, or then the maize or beans. Then they ask exactly. You want to give mwalimu, because you don't have them. Then mwalimu is not my wish. I'm not paying fees. Kindly allow my child. Most of the moment, they're not. Students are sent back home. Yes. Immediately they're sent back home, the parent comes with him or her to the headmaster. Mame mwalimu, kindly, even if I stay with this child even 3 weeks, to be honest, nothing comes, like trying to milk a stone. Just kind of have this sack of maize. Convert to fees, I would want to look for others. It's another aspect. And that's how majority of us learn, and we're doctors by virtue of that. And sometimes, so how do you give mbuzi, how do you exchange mbuzi in e-citizen? Even mbuzi itself, if you are trying to put it in the portal, it will not even... the only thing you need to do is, first, you have to go to the market and sell it, and hoping that you will find a buyer.
Daktari, does the directive say you cannot accept mbuzi? The directive from Dr. Bello.
I'm very sure they does not say, but sometimes I'm saying, what we are saying is that they are saying all fees should be paid by that. So what does the word all? It's an English name.
All encompassing, total.
All, everything. Exactly. We're saying, but they say
without exception.
Yes. Without exception. Yes. I agree, they don't say specific, and mbuzi is not allowed, but when somebody says all, and just if you say some, we pay fees in
then
this
one. Then we know that the mbuzi is not included.
Mbuzi is allowed. Because let me tell you, Eric, I'm very sure, where Kenyans majority of us were struggling to survive.
But I think it's a facetious argument. As we're going into the break,
Yes.
there is no directive from the ministry that says, headmaster, mzazi kuja na miwa, kura miwa, toa school fees.
Yes.
Nowhere. But circumstances allow the headmaster to do that, to accept the miwa, to accept the muzi. Is it on government paper anywhere?
No, it's not.
Headmaster, you should. So that's what I'm saying.
But Eric, I'm asking you, that's the word. I'm sure you read it.
What does all mean?
What does the word all mean? Just if somebody can look for a dictionary.
You know, Dr. We had this discussion earlier on. I was the chairman of the board of management of a school in the village, and I was telling him, sometimes a parent has skills.
Yes.
You need to build, they'll come and build for you, but they don't have money.
Yes.
So you convert
The labor.
Yes.
Exactly.
Into money. So
Yes.
if I'm to go by his reasoning, you can't fit labor into his reason.
26 minutes to 9. Let's take a break. Dr. Magaragi Kenyi is a human rights activist. He is one of several petitioners who have gone to court to challenge this order for school fees to be paid through eCitizen. His is actually the one that has ended up now seeing this suspension pending hearing of the case. He has taken many other cases in court, and we are asking him the thinking behind it, and also just having a conversation to understand this new human rights activist in our midst. He's called the new Okiya Omtata, in the footsteps of Okiya Omtata. But there are many like him. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is The Situation.